We're back at the table with our line panelists. Public Service Company of New Mexico, which most of us know here as PNM, responded this week to a hearing officer's recommendation that the Public Regulation Commission, or PRC, reject PNM's plan for the San Juan Generating Station. Now, we covered the debate over that coal-fired power plant recently on New Mexico in Focus, and you can find that interview here on our website. That's newmexicoinfocus.org. Now, PNM says rejecting the plan currently under consideration by the PRC would end up costing customers, Sophie, more over the long run. And do you buy that argument that it would end up costing more?
I think one of the challenges for PNM right now, coming out of the hearing officer's report, is that one of the things the hearing officer said was, you're not giving us enough information to fully evaluate your claims. And it feels to me like that includes this claim that ratepayers are going to pay more if PNM doesn't get what it wants. And so PNM is, I think, sort of stuck in this place. How much information do we share? Now, maybe it was an honest oversight there, but it doesn't feel so good when you have this hearing officer saying, I feel that you're withholding information and therefore we can't really fully vet your claims.
Exactly right. Tom, what do you make of that situation? Same question, just a little bit sideways there. I mean, PNM has their side of this, certainly. But a 12% increase they're asking for here, which is I think about $10 a month for the average kitchen table PNM client here. Is it really that egregious what they're asking for here? Is it beyond all the other stuff about San Juan and shutting down two of the things out? You know what I mean? When it comes down to people, is this really that bad a situation for folks?
Well, I mean, and by means of disclosure, my firm has interests in this particular case. My thoughts are my own. Okay. You know, the rate cases are very complicated. And so I'm glad that everybody's taking the time that they need to take a look at it. But I also think it's important to hear all sides of a story. And, you know, you referenced the interview last week as far as on New Mexico in Focus. And it was amazing to me that the critics of this particular plan are not answering the questions as far as, you know, what does the community of Farmington really think? Well, they don't know. And, you know, they claim that PNM is, you know, against coal-fired energy, but, you know, they don't want coal-fired energy, but, you know, PNM's reducing the number of plants. That's not good enough. They're upset about the increased rates, but PNM is not able to, use that to invest in their technology. So, you know, there's just a lot of disparities here.
Four Corners, Tom brought up Dede Feldman. Interesting, the county commission up there is in fact in support of PNM's plan up there because it comes down to, if I'm reading the tea leaves here, coal. And people are very concerned about losing the jobs for coal if this thing just doesn't work out because we have a potential change in 2017. What do you think the squeeze is here with this particular
Well, it's
situation?
really interesting in Farmington because, of course, Farmington pulled out of the stipulated agreement that really got this whole ball rolling in terms of being more critical of PNM than had initially been thought. And so obviously PNM has been up there working the crowd and threatening or saying that they're going to close down the San Juan generating plant if they don't get the rate increase.
Is that fair, Poole? Because you cannot just shut down a power plant. There are federal regulations about this. You can't just pull. It's like turning off the lights to prove a point. You know,
well, they are caught between a rock and a hard place there because they have to make repairs to that plant in order to comply with the new EPA standards. But it's the long-range plan, I think, that that is generating a lot of opposition. And the long-range plan, which which requires continued investment in nuclear and in that plant and continued reliance on coal is not. I don't think that people are figuring out what's the long-range benefit for Farmington and what's the short-range benefit for Farmington.
That makes sense, Rob. You know, it's interesting. The hearing officer, Ms. Glick, had a problem with the idea of one of the things you have to cast forward instead of looking backwards to kind of determine costs. And that's a difficulty for PNM right now. What's your, you know what I mean? It's a difficulty.
Well, in economics, there's no such thing as a free lunch, as all the professors like to say. There's no free lunch in energy either. I mean, and reliability is a priority here. The question, I think, well, a couple of questions pop into my mind because apparently this thing had been signed off by a number of environmental groups, Also, the EPA kind of gave it a conditional thumbs up. This happened a year ago. Now, PNM has stepped on their own foot because they came back a few months ago and said our numbers were wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
We were off on that.
Yeah.
So that
Off a lot, though.
Right. I think it was
$1 billion.
Yeah,
$1 billion.
So that was a big hit,
Yeah.
big unforced error on their part.
Sure.
But at the same time, if you're going to go the route of the Sierra Club, it's going to cost you more money.
Okay.
And this is a poor state. And if you're going to have utility rates go up, the poor people are going to be the people who are going to take the brunt of that.
Is it that folks don't trust where the potential new money is going to go? I mean, they're saying, like Dee Dee mentioned, nuclear, solar, all that kind of thing. They need to make up for the coal that's not going to be used. Is it a trust issue? The folks don't trust this company where they're going to...
Well, utility companies are despised by everyone in every state. That was a lot of different places.
Yeah.
They say that, this. It's not like it's a question of coal or no coal.
Right.
Because they're going to reduce their coal output by 50%. That's a pretty big number, and I think that was the big carrot that they offered to the EPA, because the EPA nationally has really cracked down on coal-fired nuclear power or coal-fired plants.
Right. I got to wonder, Sophie, if there's, they have a decision in May. The PRC does not have to necessarily take this hearing officer's recommendations at all.
Correct.
As a matter of fact. So I'm curious where you think we might be sitting on this, casting forward.
Well, I think it's a good question, and it's worth noting that even here, this hearing officer didn't say, I think it should be dead in the water, I think we should go
Right.
forward.
That's
Instead, what she said was, I think we need more information. Now, can they get that information before May in order to make a fully informed decision?
Right.
That, I think, is going to determine where we end up.
Right. Tom, I know you've got issues with your company on this, but I do have another question. This idea of, I want to come back to Farmington, and it really is a jobs issue. There were some interesting numbers laid out by some of the county commissioners up there on the impact if things just hiccuped a little bit. Not a disaster, but a little bit that's going to have an impact up there.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's important to note that the San Juan County Commission is in favor of this, and so there's a lot of active discussion, as we'd say, up there.
Sure.
But yeah, so what? And I'm not an expert in power or anything like that, but I know that one thing that the markets really like is consistency, and that's one of the things that this particular agreement and this ruling by the PRC would provide is consistency. Without consistency, there's chaos, at least in the markets. And so, there is always that potential that if there's a sense in the market that something happens, it could have one of those really ripple effects, not just in the Four Corners area, but throughout the state and the region.
Interesting. Please.
I think one thing to keep our eye on in the future about this is the role of the AG. The AG is beginning to weigh in, but he hasn't completely weighed in. Remember, the AG is charged with representing consumers before the PRC. And he's just recently weighed in about the tax that PNM wants to, as part of this package, levy on everyone who has a solar collector on their roof.
That's right.
And he has asked for more information about that. Looks like he's going to oppose that. But I think there's probably more to come from that direction.
Absolutely. Put a little something on what Tom said, going to you, Rob, here. Up in San Juan County, it looks like it's $41 million in annual payroll, another $15.5 in benefits, and they retain their employees for about 14 years. There's not much, you can't really find much stability comparable to that in a lot of parts of our state. Do you know what I mean? That's a lot of money for the Four Corners area, so it's easy to see why this is going to be really a Four Corners argument at the end of the day, it seems to me.
Yeah, I think so. And that's one thing you learn when you cover the legislature is you automatically think that sometimes there's going to be opposition up in the Four Corners area to this. But in fact, you get more support for keeping the coal-fired plant going in the long run from a lot of people up there. Than
And there's also a lot of harsh rhetoric coming out of the Four Corners, too, of radical environmentalists. We're hearing at that county commission meeting up there. There's a lot of different things. It's interesting. Now, stay with us. More from the line later in the hour. Up next, we get an update on how health educators, doctors, and nurses are addressing HIV here in our state.